I'm deeply grateful to the young women of Project US, of United Sisters, for inviting me to come to speak to you about the very important topic of Hakaras HaTov. The reason that I say that it's important is because Hakaras HaTov is the first thing that we do every single day. The second we wake up, the first words that we're supposed to say. We all know, Moida ani lefanecha, Hashem, we thank you. We thank you that we have now the opportunity to live another day. So you see how important it is. That's the first thing that we do every morning. A second thing I want to tell you, it's interesting. If you take a look at the last pasuk in Tehillim, the last pasuk in Tehillim that David HaMelech wrote after he wrote 150 kapitel of Tehillim, it's called Haneshama to Hallel Kol, Hallelujah. And the Gemara tells us, and it's a medrash in Bereshis Rabbah, Yud Dalet Tes, I'll call Neshima v'Neshima, for every breath of life, She'adam Nation, that a person breathes, Tzarech L'Kales L'Boyri. He's supposed to give thanks. In other words, we don't take anything for granted. The mere fact that we can breathe and we can talk and we can sing and we can walk, that's something that David HaMelech is telling us. I'll call Neshima v'Neshima, for every breath of life. That's why he ends the final pasuk in Tehillim, Kol HaNeshama to Hallel Kol. Every neshama, every soul should be grateful to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So you would think that it's natural, right, to say thank you, right? Somebody does you a favor, and why shouldn't all of us be grateful to everybody, to parents, to teachers, to friends? And I'll tell you what I think the answer is. You know, I think, unfortunately, that it is in our DNA not to be grateful. And I'll tell you what I mean. Adam HaRishon, the first person that Hashem created, what happened? Hashem gives him a wife, Chava. It's a wonderful thing to have a spouse, not to be alone. And then what happens when she says to him that he should eat from the Eitz Hadas? What? And Hashem says to Adam, why'd you do that? You know what Adam says? You wouldn't believe it. Vayomer ha'Adam. Adam says to Hashem, it's not my fault, it's your fault. Ha'isha asher nosata imadi. That woman that you gave to me, he nosna li min ha'etz. She gave me from that tree, and v'ochal, and I ate. And Rashi says, kan kofar b'toiva. Here he was kofar b'toiv. So Adam HaRishon, who was the Yitzir Kappa of Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he was the one that Hashem created, so to speak, out of his own hands, right? And he had a lack of Hakaras HaTov. So that's in our DNA. It's natural that a person is not going to say thank you, because even Adam HaRishon, who was created by Hashem, had that lack of Hakaras HaTov. And that's what the Ramban tells us on the pasuk, that Kaviyachol, Adam HaRishon was blaming Hashem. You gave me such a wife, and she made me do the Aveira. So that's why we have to be machzik ourselves. We have to give chizuk to ourselves to make sure that we always have Hakaras HaTov. So I want to tell you a great story about a person that many of you may get to know, especially if you go to Eretz Yisrael and you'll be in seminaries. There's a wonderful person. His name is Rabbi Mordechai Nagashon, a brilliant Talmud Chacham. You can talk to him on any topic. He has hundreds and hundreds of CDs on many, many aspects of Torah. As a matter of fact, he has a radio station that people call him once a week in Eretz Yisrael, and they can ask any topic under the sun. So I happen to be very, very friendly with him. And he told me an amazing story, that one time his father-in-law was not well, and he was in a hospital in Tel HaShomer, which is near Tel Aviv. And everybody knew who he was because they hear him on the radio, and they know that he's a famous teacher. He teaches in many seminaries. And so what happened was that the nurses said to him, Rabbi Nagashon, we know that you have to teach tomorrow. Why don't you go? We'll take care of your father-in-law. And he said, no, a family member is the best one to take care of. I want to be with my father-in-law a whole night. Now, of course, he was with him a whole night, and then some family member came the next morning to relieve him, and of course, he was exhausted. And as he's traveling up the hill, we all know that big hill from Yerushalayim to go up into the city of Yerushalayim, and he was very tired, and it's hard to believe. Unfortunately, he fell asleep at the wheel. And when he fell asleep at the wheel, his car went over the side of the road, and it went into a ravine. Now, of course, all the cars that were behind him see this terrible thing is happening, and they stop their cars, and they run down, and everybody in Israel has 2 or 3 cell phones, right? And they're calling the cops and calling the ambulances, and everybody's coming. And he told me that he was locked into the car. The car had fallen against a tree, and they had to yank him out of that car to save his life. Before the cops came, somebody comes over to me and says, listen, if the police come, don't tell them that you fell asleep, because if you tell them that you fell asleep, 3 things are going to happen. 1, they're going to take away your license. 2, you're going to get a fine. And 3, they're going to hike up your insurance. So as soon as the police come, the first thing they ask him is, like, what happened? And he says, well, I'm embarrassed to admit, but I fell asleep at the wheel. So they said, you fell asleep? Why are you so tired? One of the police says to him. He says, because I was watching my father-in-law all night and I didn't want the nurses to take care of him. I wanted to take care of him. Listen what the Israeli cop says. He says, the mitzvah saved your life. I'm not going to give you a ticket. Imagine only in Eretz Yisrael can such a thing happen. So then, when he told me the story, he said, why did I say the truth? You know why I said the truth? Because Hashem saved my life. My wife, he tells me, did not even want to look at the picture because the car was so smashed. She was afraid to look at the picture. Many people have been killed in accidents like that, but Hashem saved my life. So Hashem tells us, so at the least I can have is Hakaras HaTov to Hashem. He wants us to say the truth. That's the least that I can do. He saved my life. I owe him to do what he wants, and he wants us to say the truth. That's why I said the truth, no matter what the consequences were going to be. Now, I want to tell you something very interesting. Rav Elia Lopian, all of you know that he wrote a sefer called Lev Eliyahu, and he writes something that I think that every student, every boy, and every girl should know this. Now, this is a little sharp to listen to, but I think it's very important. It's in Lev Eliyahu, Chelik Gimel, page 337 and 338, and he's talking to the Bochrim, but it's the same thing to girls. Yesh Lizkor Lazar Lahoirim Besido Habayis. You have to remember to help your parents setting up the house and cleaning up the house. You shouldn't cause le'imai that your mother is going to say, "Aha, the day that my son comes home from yeshiva, or the day my daughter came home from seminary, nasa iseda babayis, the house became a holy wreck." You know, many of us, many of the girls, and many of the boys feel, "Oh, we're so tired. Oh, we have so much homework. We can't clean the house." Yeah, but your mother's not your servant, and your mother's not your slave. And parents work very hard for the welfare of their children. And that's what he's saying. That's Hakaras HaTov. And then he writes, this is amazing. I mean, I would never say this except that I'm going to read it exactly as he says it. Yesh ben Abochim, there are certain boys, Keshaboim ben Azmanim lebesom, when they come home, ben Azmanim, and I'm sure it's the girls the same thing, Yehem mispachim ala sapa ketana goylem. They spread themselves out on the couches like Tarnagoyim, and they have all kinds of teruts on why they can't help and why they can't go shopping and they can't help their younger brothers and sisters. That shows that's a selfish attitude. That's a lack of Hakaras HaTov. And we have to know that parents work very hard. And I'm saying this to all the girls that are going to watch this in any schools that you may be throughout the world. You will never, ever know how hard and how concerned your parents are until you become parents. But by that time, it's going to be too late because, your parents already will be, in a different area, and you're going to be in a different area. So just remember, part of Hakaras HaTov is giving thanks and helping in the house. That's exactly what Rav Elia Lopian is telling us. And I'll tell you something fascinating. In Bava Kama, there was an expression, the Gemara has an expression, Bira deshoses minei, a well that you drank from. Don't throw a rock in it. And we know that's why Moshe Rabbeinu couldn't hit the earth, right, for some of the Makkos. Why? Because after all, the earth protected him because it hid that person, that Mitzri that he killed. And so therefore he couldn't hit the earth. That would be a lack of Hakaras HaTov. And we learned something very interesting. You have to have Hakaras HaTov even for inanimate objects. And I'll tell you, there was the Rif, Rabbi Yitzchok Alfasi, and he came from Morocco. And he had to run away from Morocco, and he ran to Eretz Yisrael. And so when I told this story, we were in Morocco. We were taking a boat from Morocco through Tunis to Spain, and I told this story over there. The Rif, one time, was very, very ill, and he had a neighbor who had like a jacuzzi, a bath, and he said to the Rif, "Why don't you move into my house? Your body needs that jacuzzi, that needs that warmth, and then you'll be able to be healed." And the Rif Taka moved into the fellow's house, and he was healed. He had this jacuzzi, and you know something? A couple years later, this man had to sell off some of his properties because he lost some of his money. And he said to the Rif, "Could you evaluate how much this is worth so I shouldn't cheat anybody?" And the Rif said, "No, I wouldn't take a chance. I'm not going to take a chance and evaluate something because maybe that'll be a lack of Hakaras HaTov if I underestimate what the real value is because I gained from this." So we see an amazing thing. That when you have even an inanimate object like a jacuzzi, like the Rif had, he didn't want to underestimate it because he felt he owed Hakaras HaTov. So we owe Hakaras HaTov to our Sforim. You have to be careful how you treat your Sforim. You have to be careful how you treat your clothes. You can't just throw your clothes on the floor at night. because the clothes represent what you are, and you wear a certain sweater or a certain outfit because that represents what you are. And so therefore you have to be so careful, even with inanimate objects, to have hakaras hatoiv. So before I tell you the final story, I just want to tell you, just remember to have hakaras hatoiv to your parents, hakaras hatoiv to your teachers, and to your principals, and whether it's to the bus driver or to the grocer or anybody, even if they get paid for something, it doesn't make a difference. If somebody does something for you, we owe them a thanks. And I want to tell you just one more little story, and with that we'll end. You know, I know somebody in Eretz Yisrael that had a baby, and she doesn't want I should say her name, and a couple hours after the baby was born, they came in and they told her that the baby cannot swallow. And they were going crazy because they never had that in Eretz Yisrael, that a child can't swallow. To make a very long story short, they thought that they would have to do an operation, and Nebuch, the child, didn't grow as his younger brothers and sisters grew. He's very short, but he's a genius. But you know something? When it came to the time for the Pidyon Haben, his father said, I want to say a bracha to thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And everybody was wondering, what bracha is he going to say? And he said like this, Asher yotzar es Adam v'chachma ovaravay nekavim nekavim. And he said that bracha with tremendous feeling. And everybody began to realize that's the bracha that we say every day to give thanks to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So maybe all of you who are watching this, let's make it takana. From now on, when we say Asher yotzar, we won't be texting, we won't be walking to the car, we won't be walking to class. Just stand and think of the words. There are certain things in your body that have to always remain open, and certain things have to remain closed. And if chas v'sholom, you have a vein right over here, right? If this would open, a person could bleed to death. And yet certain things always have to remain open, the food pipe, the windpipe. So let's, from this project us, undertake. From now on, when we say Asher yotzar, we're going to stand in one place. How long does it take to say? A minute? Not even that. So we'll have hakaras hatoiv to HaKadosh Baruch Hu numerous times in the day. And let's remember that that's why we're called Yehudim, because Yehudim comes from Haidah, a Yid says thank you. And I thank you for asking me to come to speak to all of you, and I hope that we were all inspired together.